She's too ugly to be in the photos, Aunt Patricia announced, her voice carrying across the perfectly manicured lawn of our family estate. Just stand aside, dear. We want these photos to look presentable. The familiar sting hit my chest, but this time I didn't flinch. I watched my cousins snicker behind their champagne glasses, their designer dresses catching the summer light. My mother, ever the coward, suddenly became very interested in adjusting her pearl necklace. 10 years ago, their words would have sent me running to the bathroom in tears. But today I smiled, running my fingers along the edge of my laptop back. They had no idea what was coming. Of course, Aunt Patricia, I said sweetly, we wouldn't want to ruin the perfect family image, especially today. She missed the edge in my voice, too busy arranging everyone for the photographer. My cousins, Emma, Victoria, and Kate, preened in their matching sundresses, posed perfectly in front of the mansion that had been in our family for generations. The mansion that, as of this morning, technically belonged to me. Charlotte, darling, my Uncle Charles called out, his voice thick with false warmth. Why don't you make yourself useful and help the catering staff? That's more your level. More snickers, more knowing looks. They still saw me as that awkward teenager with frizzy hair and thick glasses, the family charity case they loved to parade around as proof of their generosity. Actually, I said, setting my laptop on the antique table they prepared for the family photos, I have something to show everyone first. Now isn't the time, my mother hissed, finally finding her voice. Don't make a scene. I opened my laptop, connecting it smoothly to the large display screen they'd set up for their precious family retrospective. Oh, but it is time, Mom. It's been time for 28 years. The screen flickered to life, displaying the logo of Morgan & Blake Industries, my company, though they didn't know that yet. The photographer paused, sensing the tension crackling through the air. What is this? Aunt Patricia demanded, her perfectly Botox forehead trying to wrinkle in confusion. This, I turned to face my assembled family, is what the ugly duckling was doing while you were all too busy admiring yourselves in the mirror. With a few keystrokes, I pulled up the company's financial records. The gasps were audible as the numbers appeared. Billions in assets, market dominance across 3 continents, and a recent acquisition that had the business world buzzing. That's impossible, Uncle Charles stuttered, his face growing pale. Morgan & Blake is the company that just bought out our family business. Surprise, I smiled, watching the realization dawn on their faces. Turns out being ugly gave me lots of time to study, build, and plan. While you were all busy at your country clubs and charity galas, I was creating an empire. My cousins had stopped snickering. Victoria's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the pristine lawn. You're lying, Aunt Patricia spat, but her voice trembled. This is some kind of trick. I pulled up another document, the acquisition papers for their precious family business, signed just that morning. No tricks, Aunt Patricia. Just good business sense. Something you all apparently lack, given how badly you ran the company into the ground. My mother stepped forward, her face a mask of confusion and fear. Charlotte, why didn't you tell us? Tell you? I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make her flinch. Like you told me about my father's real cause of death? Or about the trust fund you all drained before I could inherit it? The photographer was quietly packing his equipment, sensing this was no longer about family photos. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Would you like to see what else I know? I asked, my finger hovering over the keyboard. About the tax evasion, the insider trading, all those little secrets you thought were buried. Uncle Charles lunged forward, reaching for the laptop, but I was faster. Careful, Uncle. Wouldn't want to add a salt to your list of crimes. What do you want? He growled, his facade of gentility crumbling. I looked around at their faces. The family that had tormented me, belittled me, made me feel worthless for years. I want you to understand something. Every insult, every exclusion, every moment you made me feel ugly and unwanted. It all led to this. You created your worst nightmare. The screen changed again, showing a series of contracts, all the business relationships that had kept their lifestyle afloat. With a single click, I began canceling them one by one. Stop! Aunt Patricia shrieked, finally understanding the magnitude of what was happening. You can't do this. I already have, I replied calmly. By this time tomorrow, your perfect world will be as ugly as you always said I was. My cousins huddled together, their matching dresses suddenly looking cheap and pathetic. My mother had sunk into a chair, her carefully maintained composure shattered. The family reunion isn't over yet, I said, closing my laptop and sliding it back into my bag. I have a few more surprises planned. But for now, please continue with your photos. I wouldn't want to ruin them with my unpleasant presence. As I walked away, I heard Aunt Patricia's strangled sob, Uncle Charles's cursing, and the confused murmurs of relatives trying to understand what had just happened. My phone buzzed, a message from my CEO. All contracts terminated as planned. Legal team standing by. I typed back a quick response, perfect, start phase 2. The sun was setting over the family estate, casting long shadows across the lawn. Tomorrow, those shadows would be all they had left. But for now, I let them stew in their fear, knowing that the ugly duckling hadn't just become a swan, she'd become their destruction. And this was just the beginning. The chaos erupted faster than even I expected. By nightfall, their phones were ringing nonstop as business partners, banks, and society friends all started receiving the notifications I'd carefully orchestrated. I watched from my hotel suite as the family WhatsApp group exploded. First came the denial, then the anger, and finally the desperate attempts at damage control. Aunt Patricia, this must be a mistake. Charles, call the lawyers. Uncle Charles, they're not answering. None of them are. Victoria, Daddy, my credit card just got declined at Bergdorf's. Mom, Charlotte, please. We need to talk. I ignored them all, instead focusing on the live security feed from the estate. The camera I'd had installed months ago showed them scrambling around the mansion like ants whose hill had been kicked over. A knock at my door made me smile. Right on schedule. Come in, James, I called out. My father's former business partner, the man they forced out of the company 10 years ago, walked in, looking dapper despite the late hour. It's done, he said, handing me a folder. Every document your father left with me before the accident. I opened the folder, though I'd memorized its contents years ago, the proof that my father's car accident wasn't an accident at all. That Uncle Charles had tampered with the brakes after discovering Dad was about to expose their financial fraud. They're going to come for you next, James warned, settling into an armchair. They won't go down quietly. Let them come, I replied, pulling up another screen on my laptop. I'm counting on it. As if on cue, my phone rang. Uncle Charles's private number. I put it on speaker. You little witch, he snarled, his cultivated accent slipping in his rage. Do you have any idea what you've done? Destroyed your credit lines, frozen your accounts, exposed your tax fraud to the IRS? I listed off cheerfully. Yes, Uncle Charles, I know exactly what I've done. We're family, he tried, his voice switching to wheedling. Whatever issues you have, we can work them out. Family? I laughed. Like you were family to my father. The line went silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was deadly quiet. What are you talking about? The brake lines, Uncle Charles. Did you really think Dad didn't know what you were planning? That he hadn't prepared? I heard him inhale sharply. In the background, Aunt Patricia was shrieking something about the country club canceling their membership. You have no proof, he whispered. Check your email, I replied, hitting send on a carefully prepared message. I think you'll find I have everything I need. James watched me with a mixture of admiration and concern as I disconnected the call. Your father would be proud, he said softly, and terrified for you. They can't hurt me anymore, I assured him. I'm not that scared little girl they could push around. My phone buzzed again. My mother, trying FaceTime. This time I answered. Her face filled the screen, tears streaking her expensive makeup. Charlotte, baby, please. Whatever they did to you, I'm sorry. I should have protected you. Like you protected Dad? I asked quietly, or did you help them cover it up because you were too afraid of losing your perfect life? She flinched. You don't understand. They would have taken everything. No, Mom, I'm taking everything, and you're going to watch it happen. As I ended the call, another notification popped up. The Financial Times wanted a comment on Morgan and Blake's hostile takeover of the prestigious Blake family holdings. Shall I handle the press? James asked, already reaching for his phone. No, I smiled. Let them stew overnight. Tomorrow's bombshell will give them plenty to write about. I pulled up the security feed again. Uncle Charles was in his study, frantically shredding documents. Too late, I'd had copies of everything for years. Aunt Patricia was crying into her phone, probably trying to salvage her social standing. My cousins huddled in the garden, their perfect dresses now wrinkled, their faces shocked as their credit cards kept getting declined. What about the police? James asked carefully. When they see the evidence about your father. Already handled, I assured him. The file was delivered to the DA's office this morning. They're probably drafting the warrants now. As if to confirm my words, police lights suddenly appeared at the estate's gates. I watched on the security feed as 3 police cars rolled up the driveway. Right on schedule, I murmured, checking my watch. Would you like to stay and watch the show, James? He shook his head, standing. I've waited 10 years to see them fall, but I think you should enjoy this moment alone. Just be careful. Cornered animals are the most dangerous. After you left, I poured myself a glass of champagne, the same expensive brand they'd been drinking at their precious family reunion. On the security feed, I watched as officers entered the mansion, warrants in hand. My phone buzzed one final time, a text from Victoria. You've ruined everything. I hope you're happy. I typed back, I'm not happy, dear cousin, I'm victorious. There's a difference. Then I turned off my phone, settled back in my chair, and watched as years of carefully planned revenge unfolded on the security screens before me. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, press conferences, legal battles, the public spectacle of the Blake family's fall from grace. But tonight, I savored each moment as their perfect world crumbled. The ugly duckling hadn't just become a swan. She'd become their nightmare. The headlines the next morning were deliciously brutal. Blakey family empire Sierra UMBLEs FRAED NURDR and REVNG. Ugly duckling to billionaire. The woman who destroyed her family. Society's elite family ARSTD in 99 GT raid. I read them over breakfast in my penthouse office, watching the morning sun paint the city skyline gold. My assistant had already compiled a stack of interview requests from every major network and publication. Ms. Morgan, my secretary buzzed in. Your mother is in the lobby. She's been there since 6 a.m. I glanced at the security feed. Mom looked destroyed. Her designer clothes wrinkled, her perfectly maintained hair a mess. The queen of social grace, reduced to begging at her daughter's door. Send her up, I said finally. It's time we had a real conversation. She practically ran into my office, stopping short when she saw me. I'd chosen my outfit carefully today, a perfectly tailored suit that cost more than her monthly allowance used to be. Charlotte, she whispered, you look beautiful? I supplied, enjoying how she flinched. Amazing what money can buy. Though I didn't need plastic surgery like Aunt Patricia. She sank into a chair, her hands trembling. They've frozen all our accounts. The house, the cars, everything. We have nothing. Now you know how Dad felt in his final moments, I replied coldly, when he realized his own family had betrayed him. I didn't know, she protested weakly, about the breaks. Charles just said he'd handle everything. But you suspected. I cut her off. And he chose to stay quiet, to keep your perfect life. Tears rolled down her cheeks. What do you want from me? Want? I laughed, standing to look out over the city, my city now. I wanted a mother who would protect me, who would choose justice over social status, who would love me despite not being perfect. I did love you, she whispered. No, I turned back to her. You tolerated me, and now you're here because you need something. So what is it? She pulled out a crumpled envelope. Your cousins, they have children. Please just enough to support them. I took the envelope, removed the photos of my cousins' perfectly groomed children, and dropped them in the shredder. The same cousins who called me ugly every day. Who made my life hell? No, Mom. Their children will learn the same lesson I did, that beauty and money aren't the same as worth. You've become so hard, she said, standing shakily. I became what you made me, I replied. Now, security will escort you out. Your new apartment is ready. Small, but adequate. The stipend will cover basic needs. Nothing more. An apartment? Stipend? I'm not completely heartless, I smiled thinly. Unlike some people in this family, but one wrong move, one interview, one attempt to contact the others, and it all disappears. As security led her out, my phone buzzed. A message from James. Charles is talking to prosecutors, offering to testify about the brake tampering. Let him, I typed back. We have everything on record anyway. By evening, the story had evolved. Photos of my awkward teenage years surfaced, contrasted with my current success. Social media exploded with messages of support, calling me an inspiration. The ugly duckling who became a swan and then became an avenging angel. I sat in my father's old office, my office now, and opened his photograph. We did it, Dad, I whispered. They'll never hurt anyone again. My phone rang, Victoria's husband, panic in his voice. Please, the children's school tuition. I hung up. Another call, Aunt Patricia's lawyer, offering a deal. Declined. A text from Uncle Charles. You've won, happy now? I typed back. I'm not happy, Uncle Charles. I'm at peace. Enjoy prison. The sun set over the city, casting long shadows across my empire. Tomorrow would bring more calls, more begging, more attempts at reconciliation. But I was done with them all. The ugly duckling had spread her wings, and in her flight, she'd scattered the false beauty they'd worshipped for so long. Sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. It's about justice. And sometimes, the greatest revenge is simply becoming everything they said you couldn't be. Beautiful. Powerful. Unstoppable. I closed my laptop, gathered my things, and walked out of the office. Behind me, the name on the door gleamed in fresh gold letters. Charlotte Morgan, CEO and CHAIRM Morgan and Blake Industries. The ugly duckling had finally come home. 1 year later, the society pages called it the event of the season. The grand reopening of the Blake family estate, now transformed into the Morgan Foundation for Arts and Education, a place where ugly ducklings could find their wings. I stood at the podium, facing hundreds of guests, including many who had once sneered at my appearance. They all hung on my every word now, desperate for approval, for connection to the woman Forbes had just named Business Leader of the Year. Beauty isn't inherited. I began my speech, watching my former family members in their assigned seats, far in the back. It's created. Through kindness, through perseverance, through truth. Victoria sat with her children, now attending public school for the first time in their lives. They looked different, humbler, perhaps even happier without the weight of false perfection on their small shoulders. This foundation, I continued, will provide opportunities for those society overlooks, the awkward, the different, the ones told they're not good enough. My mother, now working as a foundation secretary, her path to redemption, dabbed at her eyes. We weren't close, and might never be, but she was trying. Sometimes that's all you can ask for. Uncle Charles watched from a prison livestream, his once proud face now lined with regret. Aunt Patricia, under house arrest, had declined to attend. Her plastic surgery empire had crumbled along with her reputation. Last week, someone asked me if I regret exposing my family's crimes. I said, looking directly into the cameras. If I feel guilty for destroying their perfect world. My answer is simple. I regret only that it took me so long to realize their definition of beauty was the ugliest thing about them. The audience applauded. Among them sat dozens of scholarship recipients, young people who reminded me of myself at that age. Brilliant, different, determined. After the ceremony, James found me in my father's old study, now a library filled with books about art, science, and transformation. Your father would be proud, he said, handing me a glass of champagne. Not just of the revenge, but of what you built from it. I nodded, watching through the window as children played on the lawn, where I'd once been told to hide from photos. The foundation approved 30 new scholarships today, I said. Kids like I was, but they won't have to wait as long to bloom. And your family? Victoria's oldest starts therapy next week. Mom's actually doing well with her NA meetings. The others, I shrugged. They made their choices. My phone buzzed. A message from my head of security. Aunt Patricia had been caught trying to sell her story to a tabloid. As per our agreement, her housing allowance would now be terminated. You know, James said carefully, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. I have forgiven them, I replied, deleting the message. I forgave them the moment I won. But forgiveness doesn't mean enabling their old behaviors. Outside, a photographer was taking pictures of the scholarship recipients. Beautiful photos of beautiful souls, regardless of their outer appearance. My assistant knocked softly. Ms. Morgan? The documentary crew is ready for your interview. The ugly duckling story. I smiled. How fitting. But before I left, I paused at my desk and opened the bottom drawer. Inside lay a single photo, my awkward teenage self, frizzy hair and all, standing aside while my cousins posed prettily for the camera. I took the photo and walked to the grand fireplace. With a single motion, I let it catch flame and curl into ash. The ugly duckling was gone, not because she'd become beautiful by their standards, but because she finally realized she never needed their approval at all. Ready for your close-up? James asked with a knowing smile. I straightened my designer suit and checked my reflection in the window, not out of vanity, but as a reminder of how far I come. Always, I replied. After all, revenge might be best served cold, but success, that's a dish best served in front of cameras. We walked out together, leaving the ashes of the past where they belonged. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in destroying your enemies. It's in building something so magnificent from their destruction that they're forced to watch, powerless, as you soar. The ugly duckling hadn't just become a swan. She'd become a phoenix, rising from the ashes of their cruelty to create something beautiful and true. And that was the greatest transformation of all.